Dan sat alone in his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly as he stared out into the darkness. The rain hammered against the windshield, making it difficult to see anything beyond the blurred outlines of streetlights. It was past midnight, and he was on his way home from a late-night shift at work. As he drove through the desolate countryside, a feeling of unease crept over Dan. The road seemed never-ending, surrounded by dense forests on either side. The sound of the rain and the occasional thunderclap filled the silence, amplifying his growing sense of isolation. Suddenly, the engine sputtered, and the car came to a halt. Dan cursed under his breath and desperately tried to restart it, but to no avail. He was stranded in the middle of nowhere in the dead of the night. With no other option, Dan decided to brave the rain and seek help. He grabbed his jacket, stepped out into the pouring rain, and began walking along the desolate road. Each step sent shivers down his spine as the shadows of the trees seemed to dance and whisper in the darkness. After what felt like an eternity, he spotted a faint glow in the distance. It was a small roadside diner, its neon sign flickering through the rain-soaked air. Relieved, Dan quickened his pace and entered the warm, dimly lit establishment. Inside, the diner was virtually empty, save for a few patrons scattered at different tables. A middle-aged waitress with tired eyes greeted him and motioned for him to take a seat at the counter. Dan ordered a cup of coffee and explained his situation to the waitress. She listened attentively, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for something. After a brief pause, she finally spoke, her voice hushed and filled with concern. "You shouldn't be out on these roads at night, especially during a storm like this. There have been rumors, you know. People disappearing, strange occurrences," she whispered, glancing nervously at the other customers. Dan's curiosity was piqued, and he leaned in closer, urging her to continue. The waitress hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "They say there's someone out there, a dangerous individual who preys on those who dare to drive alone at night. Nobody knows for sure, but those who have encountered him, they never come back." A chill ran down Dan's spine as he absorbed her words. The stories seemed far-fetched, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something unsettling about this place, about the road he had been traveling on. As the rain continued to pour outside, Dan pondered his options. Should he wait out the storm in the relative safety of the diner, or should he risk venturing back into the night, hoping to find a way to fix his car? Before he could make a decision, a loud crash echoed from outside. Dan and the other patrons turned towards the sound, their eyes widening in terror. Dan's heart raced as he exchanged fearful glances with the other patrons in the diner. The crash had come from the direction of the road, where his car had been left stranded. Panic gripped his chest, and he knew he had to investigate. With the waitress's warning still fresh in his mind, Dan mustered his courage and made his way towards the entrance. The rain had intensified, turning into a torrential downpour that obscured his vision. He pushed open the door and stepped out into the tempestuous night. The wind howled, lashing at his face as he cautiously approached the area where his car was parked. What he saw made his blood run cold. His car was mangled, twisted metal, the windshield shattered, and the windows shattered. It looked as though it had been in a horrific accident, but there were no other vehicles in sight. The rain pelted against the wreckage, creating an eerie symphony of destruction. Dan's mind raced, trying to make sense of what had happened. Who could have caused such devastation? And more importantly, were they still lurking nearby? A rustling sound from the surrounding forest broke his train of thought. Dan's heart pounded in his chest as he strained his eyes to see through the darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows, slowly approaching him. It was a man, tall and menacing, his eyes filled with malice. He smirked, revealing a set of yellowed teeth as he stepped closer to Dan. "You should have stayed in your car, boy," the man sneered, his voice dripping with malevolence. "Now, you're all alone out here with me." Dan's breath caught in his throat as he realized the danger he was in. The stories of the dangerous individual who preyed on lone drivers at night had turned out to be true, and he had walked right into his clutches. A desperate fight for survival ensued as Dan dodged the man's attacks, struggling to defend himself. The rain soaked through his clothes, making it difficult to maintain his balance. Fear and adrenaline fueled his movements as he fought for his life. But the man proved to be relentless, overpowering Dan with his sheer strength and viciousness. Blow after blow landed on Dan's body, weakening him with each strike. The world around him blurred as pain consumed his senses. Just when he thought all hope was lost, a piercing siren cut through the night. Flashing lights illuminated the area, and the assailant froze, his face contorted in anger and frustration. It was a police car responding to the crash and the reports of a dangerous individual on the loose. The officers quickly apprehended the man, ending his reign of terror. They called for medical assistance for Dan, who was battered but still alive. In the aftermath, as Dan lay in a hospital bed recovering from his injuries, he couldn't shake off the feeling of gratitude for the timely intervention of the police. He had narrowly escaped a grim fate at the hands of a deranged predator. From that day forward, Dan vowed never to underestimate the dangers of the night. He would always remain vigilant, aware of the lurking threats that could hide in the darkness. The harrowing experience would forever serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of staying safe. Charlie was peacefully driving his car along a dark and desolate road, illuminated only by the faint glow of his headlights. The night air was cool and silent, with an eerie sense of solitude enveloping the surroundings. As he continued down the empty stretch of highway, his mind began to wander. Thoughts of work, relationships, and the mundane routines of life clouded his consciousness. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his attention on the side of the road. Curiosity piqued, Charlie slowed down and steered his car closer to the figure standing there. It was a woman, her face hidden beneath the shadows of a wide-brimmed hat. A sense of unease washed over him, but he couldn't resist the urge to find out what she wanted. Rolling down his window, Charlie cautiously called out, "Excuse me, ma'am. Is there something wrong? Can I help you?" The woman turned her head slowly, revealing only a glimpse of her pale, ghostly features. Her voice, barely above a whisper, carried an air of foreboding as she spoke. "You mustn't go any further, Charlie. If you do, you will meet with a terrible accident." Charlie's heart skipped a beat. How did this stranger know his name? He felt a shiver run down his spine, but he brushed it off as an elaborate prank. "Sorry, ma'am, but I have to be on my way," he replied, attempting to hide his growing unease. The woman's eyes seemed to glimmer with an otherworldly knowledge. "Please, Charlie, I implore you to reconsider. Trust me when I say that your life is in danger." Though unsettled, Charlie couldn't bring himself to believe her words. He had always been a skeptic, dismissing anything supernatural or premonitory as mere coincidence or superstition. He nodded politely, offering a weak smile, and pulled away from the woman, continuing his journey into the night. As he drove, the encounter with the mysterious woman replayed in his mind. An unsettling feeling crept over him, intensifying with every passing mile. Doubt gnawed at his thoughts, prompting him to question his decision. In a moment of wavering resolve, Charlie finally decided to heed the woman's warning. He abruptly applied the brakes, bringing his car to a screeching halt on the desolate road. Just as he did, a deafening crash shattered the silence. Charlie's eyes widened in horror as he looked through his rearview mirror. A speeding car, traveling too fast to stop in time, careened into the path of an oncoming truck. The collision was devastating, engulfing the night in a haze of twisted metal and shattered glass. The sound of crunching metal and screeching brakes reverberated in Charlie's ears. Trembling and filled with a mix of gratitude and fear, Charlie realized the enormity of the situation. He had narrowly escaped a tragic fate, thanks to the enigmatic warning from the mysterious woman. Charlie sat in his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as he tried to process the horrifying scene before him. The crash had left a trail of destruction, and emergency sirens began to wail in the distance. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily upon him, and a profound sense of guilt washed over him. He stepped out of his car, his legs feeling weak and unsteady beneath him. As he approached the wreckage, he couldn't help but wonder about the woman who had warned him. Who was she, and how did she know what was about to happen? The flashing lights of the emergency vehicles illuminated the area, casting an eerie glow on the twisted metal. Charlie approached one of the paramedics on the scene, his voice quivering as he spoke. "Excuse me, do you know if anyone survived?" he asked, his voice barely audible. The paramedic sighed, his face etched with exhaustion and sadness. "I'm afraid not. It's a tragic accident, and it seems like there were no survivors." Charlie's heart sank. The weight of the woman's warning now bore down upon him. She had tried to save him, but in doing so, she had sacrificed herself and the others in the process. The guilt consumed him, making him question his own choices. Over the following days, Charlie couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden presence, and a chill ran down his spine whenever he was alone. Sleep eluded him as nightmares haunted his nights, replaying the accident and the face of the woman in his dreams. Determined to find answers, Charlie embarked on a quest to uncover the truth behind the mysterious woman's warning. He delved into local archives, searching for any information that could lead him to her identity. After days of tireless investigation, Charlie discovered a tragic tale of a woman who had lost her life on that very stretch of road years ago. Her name was Sarah Evans, a young woman who had been involved in a fatal car accident. The details were eerily similar to what he had witnessed. Driven by a mix of curiosity and guilt, Charlie sought out Sarah's family. He hoped that they could shed some light on the inexplicable connection he felt towards her. With trepidation, he knocked on their door, uncertain of what he might discover. To his surprise, the door swung open to reveal an elderly couple. Their eyes were filled with sorrow, reflecting the pain of a loss that had never healed. Charlie introduced himself and shared his story, recounting the encounter with Sarah on the night of the accident. The couple listened intently, tears streaming down their faces. They explained that Sarah had possessed an extraordinary gift, a premonition of impending accidents that had saved countless lives. However, in her own tragic twist of fate, she had been unable to save herself that night. The couple thanked Charlie for sharing his experience, finding solace in the fact that Sarah's warning had indeed saved someone. Charlie, though burdened by the weight of the knowledge, felt a sense of closure. He had been given a second chance at life, and he vowed to honor Sarah's memory by living each day to its fullest. Months passed, and Charlie's life slowly regained a sense of normalcy. However, the memory of Sarah and the night drive never left him. He became an advocate for safe driving, sharing his story to raise awareness and prevent future accidents. In the quiet moments, as he gazed at the stars twinkling in the night sky, Charlie couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude. He had been given a chance to change his fate, and he vowed to make every moment count. Little did he know that the spirit of Sarah, forever bound to that fateful road, watched over him with a sense of bittersweet contentment. Her selfless act had not been in vain, and her presence lingered, a guardian angel guiding those who dared to traverse the treacherous night drive.